Imposter syndrome. Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I always walk into a room even now, and I'm supposed to be Sir Brian May, and I think, oh, what do people think? Maybe I shouldn't be here. Yeah, I get that a lot. And until people sort of start speaking to me, I always assume that A, they don't know who I am, B, they wouldn't be interested anyway, and C, I'm going to bore them to death. Yeah, I get that a lot.
Welcome back to Fret Not, the podcast that demystifies the learning process that we all go through with our work, in our music, and in our lives. Join me, Rosie Bennett, as I talk to my favourite musicians about the lessons they've learnt and are still learning, the mishaps, the blunders, the moments that have felt difficult, and all of the insights that they've picked up along the way. Wherever you are in your journey, you aren't alone, and today I'm here to prove it to you with my second guest of this season, Brian May. Brian was born in 1947 in Hampton Hill, near Twickenham, to his parents Ruth and Harold May. He enjoyed a fairly normal childhood, achieving his O and A levels and going on to study physics at Imperial College, London. During this time, he formed the band Smile with drummer Roger Taylor and singer Tim Staffel. Brian began and worked on his PhD for 4 years, during which time he taught maths at a local school, and with his drummer Roger Taylor and new singer Freddie Bulsara, who would become Freddie Mercury, formed Queen. 15 studio albums, a greatest hits album that went 23 times platinum, over 700 live concerts, and one of the most iconic live performances in history later, it's safe to say that Queen is one of the most loved and celebrated bands on earth. Since the tragic death of its frontman Freddie Mercury in 1991, Queen has continued to live on in the form of Queen and Adam Lambert, an Olivier Award-winning Broadway musical, We Will Rock You, and an Oscar-nominated movie biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody. Brian has released several solo albums to critical acclaim, is an active member of the scientific community, having completed his doctorate in 2007, has an asteroid named after him, is an animal rights activist campaigning against fox hunting and the culling of badgers in the UK, and was recently knighted for his services to music and charity. Brian and I met online a few years ago through our shared love of South American guitar music, and he kindly invited me to his home to record this episode of Fret Not at the end of the summer. We talk about his early guitar beginnings, how the internet and AI are changing fame, how difficult it can be to be a parent, and how he's dealt with living in the public eye for such a considerable portion of his life. More from me at the end, but for now, enjoy. Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome to my kitchen.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done an interview in the kitchen before. This is a very good idea.
I think it's cozy.
It means the kettle's closed, which is good.
Exactly, that's true. That's true.
So we meet at last for the first time.
Yeah.
We've only met on screens before this.
Yeah, indeed.
So it's great. Fantastic.
Yeah. And you don't feel like a stranger, which is nice.
No, I feel like I know you.
Do I
Yeah,
feel like
we
a
know each other.
stranger? Okay. Could be. Well, yeah, no, it's really nice to see you. And yeah, thanks for having me. I'm
Me
glad
too.
we've got good weather for it as well.
Yeah, very nice.
So, yeah, nice.
I just want you to play, but we'll talk for a little while.
Well, I'll dive into my serious
Okay.
questions.
Yes.
Did you always find playing easy?
Ooh. I always found some kind of playing easy, I suppose. I only found it easy if I was doing what I wanted to do. So I was always kind of resistant to being taught, I think, which is not a good thing to be. It's not a great attribute, is it? But I was the same on the piano. I used to go to piano lessons every Saturday morning and kind of hated it because they were always telling me the guy he's not a very nice guy. He would like hit my fingers if I did it wrong, and he'd puff his pipe all over me. But I would go home and just play what I felt like doing for hours and enjoy it. And then my mum and dad would come in and say, "Have you done your practice?" And I go, "No, not really." So with the guitar, I was never taught. So it was kind of easy in that way. I just played what I wanted to play. I listened to people. I got excited by the way people played, and I wanted to play that way. So I picked stuff up. I guess we all pick stuff up, don't we? I think that's true. I think about this a lot these days because of AI and what that's doing. You know, AI is going to have the ability to kind of dredge everybody else's talent and make something out of it. which is a bit scary, I find, because I think 2023 is going to be the last year when something's actually been written by a human, talking about music. It's going to be very strange. Mm-hmm. But then I started to think, well, maybe we all do that, because we don't create out of a vacuum. And we hear something and we get inspired and we do our own thing. And how much are we influenced and how much are we actually taking? I find it a very interesting thing. I got involved in an argument on the internet with some people. I wasn't actually in the argument. I just kind of observed the argument. But it was about art, about graphic art. And people were saying, well, this person's stolen my work, or this person has stolen a photograph, or stolen something. And I did get involved in the end because they were kind of putting people down for being plagiarists. And I said, in a way, we're all plagiarists. None of us creates in a vacuum. So I find that a very interesting area. Every time now when I'm creating something, I think, where is this coming from? Is it something that I heard? Is it something I felt spontaneously? Where does it come from, and where are those lines? I mean, it's probably good to not be so analytical, because mostly in my life I haven't been. You just let it happen. Looking back, I wonder, I was thinking of Fat Bottom Girls. I never heard a song like that. I never heard Fat Bottom Girls, but I heard that kind of swampy beat, and I heard people singing harmonies like that. So in a way I was distilling feelings that I had about the deep south of America to make that song. So it came from somewhere. I didn't steal it off somebody who'd already written it, but there's influences, and the influences are strong, and I think that's true of everybody. I could go on about this for ages.
Is that something that you think about? Do you listen to specific things, or do you try and sort of feed your soul with things when you're trying to write?
No, I've never done it consciously, and no, I've never done anything consciously. But now I find myself listening to some of those old records that influenced me in the 50s, and listening to them a bit more critically and thinking, I thought that was something new, but actually they took this from here, they took that from the blues, they took that from country. You can see it very clearly.
Yeah.
I was involved with James Burton recently, who's a big hero of mine, and wondering, where did that come from? How did he get this idea to bend strings? Well, it came from somewhere, but he made it his own, and he was the first person to really move me by bending strings and making the guitar talk as I saw it. So I don't know how we got onto this, but maybe that's a long answer to a short question.
No, it's interesting. It's actually something that I talk about a lot with one of my students.
Do you?
He's trying to write something that will be sort of irreplicable by AI or by technology. So he's searching right now for the different sounds and different sort of things, especially on the guitar, different sounds that couldn't be replicated.
But can you say that? Can you say that AI can't do it? I don't know if you can say that AI... I don't know if you can say there's anything that AI couldn't do, because AI is going to get a lot cleverer than we are. So anything we can do...
It can do better.
He can do too, and better, but maybe better. It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
And I think it's all around us much more than we realise. There's a few things I've heard recently, and I think, is that AI? Because it looks like it's taken pieces and pieces and pieces and made something out of already existing pieces of music. And I'm thinking, well, humans can do that too. But I'm starting to think maybe AI is much more prevalent than we realise in 2023. Because you can do it. I know people can go on these chatbot bases and say, write me a song about the rain in September or something, and they'll get something.
Yeah, definitely.
That's scary.
Yeah, and I suppose every time you input something, even if it gives a silly answer, you're also supplying the training data for it to become more fine-tuned and more accurate.
Yeah, and the longer it exists and learns, the better it's going to get at doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get feedback. It's going to get told what's good and what isn't. Ooh.
Do you think it'll be used for good?
I hope so. Yeah, I think it will be good. I think it'll be used for good. I suppose it's like any medium. It can be used for good and bad. I fear how much it will be used for bad, though, because the potential for using it for bad purposes is huge, isn't it? You know, if you imagine a Putin or a Boris Johnson, for that matter, or a Trump getting hold of that amount of power, it's very, very scary to me. And in a way, I see it a little bit like Oppenheimer with his bomb. You know, the first politician who gets hold of that ultimate power of a self-learning chatbot, for want of a better expression, that's going to change the world, and it could not be good. It may not be good. So I find it very scary.
It is scary. I wonder what the applications that would have bad consequences would be for music.
For music, well, I think it's scary because you're never going to know what's actually human from this point on.
Do you think that matters?
Does it matter? That's a very good question. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter if it just moves us in a certain way. I've kind of come up against it, though, and I've kind of done a bit of soul searching. Some of the things that people have asked me to do, I've thought, what territory am I getting into now? Because sometimes people are asking me to kind of do what I did in the past. And I don't really want to do that. I would rather be finding new places. And it might be a trap if people are trying to slot you into something which is already a development of what you did in the past. That's an odd sensation. But we'll see.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I'm torn because I sort of want to think that it doesn't matter that much, at least in our world, because I think that, art has a two-way process. It's great to make it, and it's great to enjoy it, or to be entertained by it, or to engage with it. And I suppose it doesn't need to be made by somebody.
No, maybe not.
For that but then again, I don't know, because like that Pernambuco piece, you know, you really also engage with the story of it, and it's not just the notes. But then I don't know, because also you can just listen to the piece and you could make up your own sort of story. So maybe the fact that we would think of it as being something artificially created would take away from it, without it intrinsically actually having a changed form. I don't know. It's difficult to say.
It is. There's a few facets, of course, because you can have people performing a piece of music that's made by AI, but eventually you will have AI performing it as well.
Yeah.
And probably listening to it and crying. And then you forget about humans. Humans don't matter anymore, right?
We'll all be gone by then anyway. So
yeah, probably. Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be weird. I think quicker than people realise, it's going to get very, very weird.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you see just how things have changed in the last 5 years, and how much you consent to these days online, even without knowing it, and how much we get for free in return for the sort of collection of knowledge about who we are. But then the question, I suppose, is what's the real dangerous implication of that anyway? I don't know. It's difficult.
Well, I mean, I suppose nobody dies in that case, but it just means a lot of people are out of a job, and I think that's going to be true in so many spheres of life, because the AI thing will be able to do it better, probably more accurately, more reproducibly, and it can learn. The real danger, I suppose, comes when you get into politics and armament and ways of solving problems. I mean, if you have a very good problem-solving machine, gets you a long way, doesn't it? You know, the problem being that you can't win a war, for instance. You know, it will find ways for you to win that war, whether you're in the right or not. Again, that's always been the way, I suppose. But these things could be very clever. You can foresee a time when there's two AI brains plotting against each other.
Yeah,
it's pretty scary, isn't it? And how do they make their decisions? On the basis of, you know, how many lives lost? Maybe not.
I wonder if you had two machines fighting each other, if then that's a very Hollywood ending. If the real solution would be to then have a more human element, or a more creative, unpredictable element introduced. Because that was the thing about Deep Blue, right? The chess machine. You had to play unstrategically to beat it.
But Yeah, but the AI could learn to do that too.
That's true.
I'm afraid.
That's true.
They can learn
It's
anything.
only in Hollywood you get those nice endings.
Yeah. I mean, anything we can come up with, they don't even need to come up with it. They just go, we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I do find it a scary thought.
That is scary.
Yeah.
How do you think, because you've been famous a lot of your life, how do you feel that fame has changed since the internet? For the better? For the
I don't know. Everybody's famous now, aren't they? It's a very interesting question. Yeah, in the beginning our music was well known, but we weren't really. Like when I met Anita, who's my wife now, she was a very famous TV star and she was instantly recognisable anywhere we went, which is quite strange. I wasn't. Queen music was quite successful, but people didn't really know what I looked like, or even what Freddie looked like that much, although Freddie was much more visible. And that gradually changed. We became more sort of in people's lives and in the media. And then with the internet, I suppose the internet amplifies everything and gets more intense. What changed our lives a lot is these things, because in the old days, people, if they recognise you, would say, "Oh, it's nice to meet you," and they'd look at you and you have a little chat, and they might say, "Oh, could you sign something for me?"
Yeah.
Now, everyone's got a camera, so that's where it starts. They're like, "Oh, hello." And they're probably not only taking pictures of you, they're probably filming you. So when you're going, "Oh, please, don't film," they're filming that.
Yeah.
So you come across as being like unfriendly, in spite of the fact that you've probably had 1,000 people ask you that day. And it's kind of intimidating, to be honest. I find that quite difficult, and it makes me want to be more private, I suppose. I don't like to be out in the world where everybody can be kind of pretending to do their emails, but actually they're filming you.
Yeah.
It's very intrusive.
Yeah.
I suppose you can get used to anything. I find it worse if I got my kids around. I just don't want that to be public. I try to protect them. So if people are filming me with the kids, I get kind of upset. Just because it's people are making an assumption and they're possibly putting my family in danger by doing that.
Yeah.
So that's changed what fame is like, for sure. And of course, there's no such thing as like privacy or a rare picture. No picture is rare these days. Someone takes a picture of you and you're coming out of the toilet or something, and you're all a mess. It's just one person. That would have been one person with a camera in the old days. Now it will instantly be put on somebody's Instagram and the whole world will see it. And if it's funny or embarrassing, they'll want to see it more. So that's kind of strange, and it changes performance as well, as you know. We used to do stuff in one, play in Chicago, and you're communicating with that audience, and you treat it as a one-off experience, which it is, and you share things, and then you would go to the next town, and it would be a new world completely. Nobody would know what you did the night before.
Yeah.
Now it's completely different. They will all have seen what you did the night before.
Yeah.
So they're going to be wondering if you did the same thing or if that was a mistake, or it introduces so many different kinds of elements. And some of it's quite funny, because the thing to do if you were on tour, you would say, "Oh, that was a great night, Chicago's the best town in the whole world." They go, "Hooray, hooray," and then you go to the next, "Oh, Cleveland is the best town in the whole world." Now you can't do that because everybody knows you're not being totally sincere. So it's odd. It's changed. The world is such a different place from what it used to be when I started. I mean, I couldn't afford to phone home when we were first on tour. That's how different it was. We didn't have any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was expensive to phone from America back home, so I didn't do it very often. We used to write airmail letters to each other, which took a few days to get there. But that was how we, that's how you conducted your love affair. If you were living with.
Yeah.
And I remember being in Tenerife, and I'd been living with a lady, and I discovered by airmail letter that she'd left. So by the time I read it, she's gone like days before. So it was all very strange. It's different now. You pick up the phone and you're right there. You can see them as well. And
yeah.
it's very, very, very different.
Yeah, and then obviously privacy is also a big worry because
Privacy's
people can
gone.
hack into your anything these days.
I got hacked, and it was very unpleasant. I realised how easy it was for this horrible person to hack into my accounts, and then he had control of my email, which I didn't have anymore. So it's not people going, oh, why can't you just do this and do that? And I go, I can't do anything. You know, I've lost control, not just of email, but of Twitter, as it turned out, and TikTok and whatever. And it's a horrible feeling. So people think they're writing to you, and they're writing to this person.
Yeah.
It's just vile. I found it really upsetting.
I
It took
bet.
me months as well. I've only just about sorted it out, and it was about 6 months ago it happened.
Really?
Mm.
Yeah, it's a strange world while we get used to what the online crimes are as well.
Yeah.
Because nothing's really punishable until it's really bad.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, if you went into someone's home and changed the locks, they'd
That's the equivalent.
they'd be out quickly.
That's
so,
it. That's
yeah.
about what it was like. And it's only about money to them, you know. It's something so trivial, you know. If they got the intelligence to do that, why can't they do something good with themselves? You know, it's just annoying and wasteful. I hate wasted time.
Nasty.
Anyway.
I'm sure you're glad that my setup took so long then.
Oh, that wasn't wasted time. No, that was educational,
Thanks
and
for
I
your
like
patience.
seeing you. I'm getting to know you. We can chat. It's good. I'm so happy to meet you.
Yeah, me
After all
too.
this time.
Me too, yeah, it's really nice. Actually, while you were talking about, not knowing what's yours or what's not yours anymore in your brain in terms of ideas and coming up with things, I was really curious just about when Vanilla Ice brought out Ice Ice Baby. What, I've read about what happened and what the verdict was, but who was it who listened to it first, or who alerted you to it, or what happened?
Oh, I don't remember what was first. I think it was just on the radio, and we heard it, and various
and then you
people.
thought, wait a minute.
Thought, yeah, and then I remember hearing an interview with Vanilla Ice himself, and they said, didn't you steal this from Queen, this riff, ding, 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 ding? And he said, no, theirs was completely different. Theirs was ding, 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 ding. Mine is ding, 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 ding. I thought, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But, we didn't go to war over it, but the publishers did. Our publishers did, because, it's money. And so they came to a settlement, and the settlement was basically he pays us most of the money that is ever generated by that song. So we're all right with that. We became part of the writing team, if you like.
Nice.
Yeah, that's an interesting example, though, isn't it? I mean, he made something new and interesting, and people liked it. So I guess it's about acknowledging your influences. That's the decent thing to do, isn't it? And I hope that I've always done that. Sometimes you want to quote someone deliberately. It's like Rachmaninoff. Sorry, it's like Rhapsody on the Theme of Paganini. He was upfront about what he was doing, and so nobody minded. If he'd kind of stolen that stuff without acknowledging it,
Sorry.
it would have been different. It's my duck friend. Yes. Oh, yeah. Ice Ice Baby. Yeah, it still kind of makes me smile.
It is funny. I think it's one of the best publicity stunts ever, if that's what he was going for, because that was his debut album.
Yeah.
That's a good way to get into the...
True, it was good for publicity either way, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That is funny, though. I don't know if it was even him. It's probably someone he worked with. I have no idea, really,
Yeah.
how it happened.
I don't know either, but yeah, funny. But that video is great when he sings it. Oh, completely different. I like that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh yes, I wanted to ask this. You were doing your PhD when you started with Queen. What function did music have in your life at that time? And what was the moment where you said, right, I'm gonna change over. I'm gonna change my life so drastically.
Yeah. There's a sort of crucial point in my life when I was doing my PhD, and I had a grant for the PhD, but the grant had run out, and I still hadn't finished. So I was teaching at a comprehensive school, maths, which I kind of enjoyed. So I was doing that in the daytime. We just got together as Queen, and we were rehearsing night times, and I was trying to write up my PhD.
Mm-hmm.
So those three things, I never slept, and it was like a sort of crunch time. And in the end, something had to give, and what gave way really was the science, because I came to the conclusion I wasn't good enough. That's really what happened. Because I kept submitting my thesis, which was all finished and written up and everything. I submitted it to my supervisor so that we would be able to submit it to the authorities. And he didn't think I'd done enough. He would send me back. He said, no, this is good, but go back and do a bit more here, a bit more writing. So I kept going back. And in the end, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm sitting here and I'm going round and round in circles. I'm obviously not good enough to get this PhD. So it actually wasn't that hard to give it up. I thought that the scientific community would benefit from the fact that I wasn't doing it anymore. And Queen was just ready to go. We just had a few songs together, we were rehearsing, and it's like this door was opening, and I thought, if I don't walk through this door when it's open, it will never open again. That was the thought I had. And I always had that dream. Ever since Buddy Holly, I remember I saw Buddy Holly on Sunday night at the London Palladium on TV and thought, that's what I want to do. I want to make that kind of sound with the guitar, and I want to move people with those songs and do that thing that music does to people, excite people. That's why. So it was a dream, and I thought, well, maybe we can do it. And we had just the four members of Queen together at that point. I'd been working with Roger for quite a while on a previous group. We'd met Freddie a few months before, and he'd come in. And we finally found John, last of all, who was a friend of a friend of a friend. And finally we thought, we have the right group here, we have the right chemistry. And we thought, we should go for this. So we all gave up everything else and concentrated on being Queen. It was a bit foolhardy at the time. I mean, my dad was horrified because I'd done all this high-intensity academic training, got all my O-levels and A-levels, and I got my first degree. I got my physics degree, first degree, and I'd done 4 years by that time of postgraduate research to get a PhD, which I hadn't managed to do. It all went, and I just became, I didn't want to call myself a musician at that point. I wasn't really confident enough to call myself a musician at that point. I remember people, you get to fill in forms, what do you do? And I thought, am I a musician? Or am I just trying to be a musician? What am I actually doing here? It's ages before I actually came to terms with the fact that this was probably going to be my job.
Yeah. It's not easy, is it?
No.
I find that too. I feel like if I tell people I'm a guitarist, it's almost like a placeholder for unemployed. That's I think what people think.
Well, yeah, and my dad firmly thought that. He was always saying to me, well, you'll get a proper job after this, won't you? You'll do this for a while, and then you'll get a real job. And I thought, I don't know. And it was funny, but at the same time it was bad because we fell out. Me and my dad fell out really badly because he felt I'd thrown my life away. And it wasn't until a few years later when we played at Madison Square Garden and I flew him over on the Concorde, which he'd worked on as an engineer.
Yeah.
And he came and watched us, and then afterwards he came back and kind of shook my hand, which is what my dad did. He didn't kind of do hugs. He shook my hand and said, okay, I get it now, I understand. And I was very, because you kind of want to, even if you don't agree with your parents, you have this terrible desire for them to be proud of you, don't you? Yeah. I think so. So I'd had that. Maybe I didn't admit it, but I had it, and so that was a big deal for me. What was the question?
I don't know. I'm going to check the camera because I think that was the alarm that tells them that I should.
Okay.
Press because doesn't like it. And just check that we're still good because the light is slightly changing. You know what I might just do?
Do you usually smile this much?
Do I usually smile this much? Well, when I'm in good company.
It's lovely. It's great to have somebody that smiles that much.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have you struggled with imposter syndrome?
Yes.
Career?
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I always walk into a room, even now, and I'm supposed to be Sir Brian May, and I think, what do people think? Maybe I shouldn't be here. Yeah, I get that a lot. And until people sort of start speaking to me, I always assume that A, they don't know who I am, B, they wouldn't be interested anyway, and C, I'm going to bore them to death. Yeah, I get that a lot.
Still now?
Yeah, absolutely now. Yeah, it's funny.
More now, or it's always been the same?
It's the same. I don't think it ever really goes away. And then logic tells you, oh, yeah, okay, I'm that person, and people will expect this. They won't expect me to be a 16-year-old anymore. They'll expect me to know what I'm doing. But in a way, it's a healthy thing, I think, because it stops you getting too arrogant and making assumptions. So it doesn't bother me that much. But yeah, I feel it even more in scientific circles, I think, because I went away from science and then I came back and I did get my PhD without any jiggery pokery. You know, they were really hard on me. I know that for a fact. You know, I didn't get it easy. Yeah. But nevertheless, I feel like I went away from that community and then I came back. So I still think, am I kind of justified in calling myself an astronomer or an astrophysicist? And sometimes I think I'm not. But I have my own little niche that I do. And the niche that I have in astrophysics is the stereoscopic niche. So I do astrostereophotography. And there ain't many people in the world who do that. So I can sort of hold my head up in that little tiny area.
Yeah. Oh, but that's nice, because now that you have such a big platform, you can bring people towards it.
I love doing that, yeah. And I think that goes back to my teaching days in maths. I remember getting great joy in making people realise that maths could be really fun, could be interesting, and they could understand it. It's not something difficult. They can actually get it as a picture. So I try to do that with the science. And all the books that we publish, I now publish quite a lot of books, a lot of which are scientific. I always try to prioritise being intelligible, not talking above people, but talking in ways that they can really understand. So I'm hoping that people will open our books and go, oh, actually I do get this. I didn't realise I could. Like the Big Bang or whatever it is, you know. And all those kind of things. And there's a book we're publishing now on about an asteroid called Bennu, and I was because of my stereoscopy, I was part of the NASA team which visited this body. It's a near-Earth asteroid, so it's an asteroid that could hit us in the future, possibly. And we're publishing a book on it, and again, my first priority was we have to make it intelligible by everyone, not just the specialists. So we can't talk in jargon. We can't assume that they understand these concepts. Everything has to be understandable to anyone who has a little bit of patience, a little bit of curiosity. And it's a real challenge. I love that. Came from Patrick Moore, who was a hero of mine. He was a great communicator of astronomy, and he was the reason that most astronomers that I know came into it. It's probably before you were born, but he presented a program and created the program called The Sky at Night for 50 years non-stop. He was the presenter, and every kid that I know in my generation used to beg their parents to let them stay up to watch Patrick Moore to find out about the universe. And he always made it not only clear but exciting. You saw it through his eyes. He was so excited to look at these rings of Saturn and look at these wonderful moons, you know, and you can look up in the sky and you can see these constellations. I was just completely captured by that, and that's the feeling that I like to kind of conjure up in people with the science. I also have this kind of crazy idea that art and science are the same, and it's not a view which has ever been popular in my upbringing, but I feel so much that things are too divided. I think really there's a lot of art in the best science, and there's a lot of science in the best art, and you need to have both to function as a complete human being. You need art, science, and you need compassion, I would say, because without that you're not a very good human being.
I actually was looking it up because I wondered if you did like a defense and stuff when you did your PhD.
Oh yeah, I did. Oh, my defense was horrible.
Was it?
Yeah, well, I'd spent 30 years on this, remember? You know, I'd spent like 4 years in the 1970s and then gone off and done Queen and whatever. Came back and did a year solid. I mean, I ditched everything else, worked really hard, and came back finally. And I typed it all up on my laptop myself, In the old days, it was all handwritten, of course. So I typed it up on tour on my laptop, and then I had to do an awful lot of research into what had happened in those 30 years when I'd been away. You can imagine that was very time-consuming.
Yeah.
So finally I present it, and there's two guys. There's a sort of home adjudicator from my college, and there's an outside examiner.
Mm-hmm.
The outside examiner obviously thought, this guy's going to get his PhD easily because he's famous and whatever. So he was going to make it as hard as he could. So he came in the room with a copy of my thesis, with about 100 little yellow pieces of paper with things that he disagreed with.
Oh.
Right, and I just thought, this is going to be miserable. And he worked, I think, about an hour and a half. He worked through all these things. He said, no, that's not right. You should be doing that. You need to redo that. So I sort of went lower and lower. And in the end, the two of them talked, and they said, well, we're going to award you your PhD, but on the condition that you go back and rewrite all these bits. So it was like another 3 months' work, which is not what I wanted to hear.
Whoa. Okay.
So dispiriting. Anyway, I did
bet.
it. I did it, and I resubmitted it, and the PhD I have now. So I am Dr. Brian May. But now I'm Sir Brian May. It's quite difficult, and I don't know what people should call me. They could just call me Bri.
Right.
It's much easier.
Yeah, but that's amazing. A PhD is no mean feat. So.
Do you know, people make PhDs hard deliberately. That's part of the deal, because they had a hard time getting their PhD, so they ain't going to let you get one easy.
Sure.
And because I was famous, that was, I think people were on the lookout for that. And my supervisor realised that, so he was really tough on me. But he said, I'm going to be tough on you because everyone else is going to be tough on you, and I have to be seen to do that. So even after all that, I got destroyed by the outside examiner.
Well, at least you got through it.
I got it,
So
yeah.
Have there been other times where you feel like you being famous has been a disadvantage?
I think it's something to juggle with when you're a parent.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to get things right if you're very conspicuous as a parent, because your child is generally not going to like it, because it brings unwanted attention for the wrong reasons. And sometimes your children will make friends for the wrong reasons because their parent wants to get to know me or something. That's a horrible thing to happen to a child. And it's just a struggle to bring them up normally, because you work hard to be successful. That's what we all do.
Yeah.
And with success comes money and the ability to have a good life, like maybe a nice house, a nice car, or whatever. And yet, some of the parents of the kids that your kid hangs out with won't have that. So what do? You want to make you want your kid to be normal and not stand out. So the tendency is to overcompensate. I think you tend to. I found myself denying my kids certain things that they wanted because they would look like rich kids.
Okay.
And again, you don't know whether you're doing the right thing or not. It's almost impossible to get it right, because it's going to go wrong at some point anyway. But parenting's like that anyway. You haven't got any kids? No, see, when you get kids, what happens is you can't get it right, because they're going to take their first steps.
Yeah.
Boing, boing, boing over there, and they're going to fall down, right? If they fall down, they're going to hurt themselves, and they might hurt themselves badly. They might hit their head and never get up.
Yeah.
So you want to hold them and make sure that they don't fall. If you hold them, make sure they don't fall, they never learn to walk properly.
Yeah.
So what do you do? And parenting is like that, I think. You cannot get it right. And my kids are all grown up now, and they're now parents themselves, and they now understand what I went through. And that gives me great satisfaction when my daughter says to me, Dad, I know what you went through now. I'm going through it now. You can't get it right. Your child is always going to tell you you're wrong. And that's parenting. And parenting, you don't get taught, right?
Yeah.
Who teaches you how to parent? At school? No.
Yeah.
Never. Should be. It's probably the most important thing you ever do, right? Parent. So it's a funny old world, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is strange.
You
Funny.
remember this one day.
will.
Bryce said, I can't get it right. So you have to forgive yourself, really. You do your best, but you have to forgive yourself, because, nobody gets it right.
Are you good at forgiving yourself?
It's a very
Loaded
good question. No, I'm probably not. No, that's a very good question. No, I've been through agonies thinking that I'd made some terrible mistake with my kids. And at certain points in their life, they will tell you that you made a terrible mistake. And dealing with that is really hard.
Mm.
And what you have to do, I suppose, is own up to it and go, yeah, probably I was a bad parent at that point. I made a wrong decision. So what do I do now?
Mm.
Are you going to forgive me? Am I going to forgive me?
Yeah.
If we don't sort of forgive and move on, it doesn't really benefit anyone. So in a way, you've got to get this out of the drawer, look at it, sort of make amends as best you can and put it back in the drawer, because if it's there in front of you your whole life, you never move on.
Yeah.
But this stuff goes on a lot, I think, and I know it in my own family, I know it in other people's families as well. And I suppose that's what's that is what therapy is about, a lot of it, looking at these things and putting them in their place, rather than letting them dominate your life. Because you can't get to an adult age and keep blaming your parents. There's some point where you have to go, okay, I have to take responsibility for it now. Even if my dad told me wrong and my mum told me wrong, I'm a grown up. This is me.
Yeah.
And I have to be responsible.
Do you go to therapy?
I have done. I've done quite a lot of therapy. I'm not doing therapy at the moment. I keep busy. Keeping busy is my therapy. Now, I know that may not be the healthiest kind of therapy. In fact, the therapy I went to, that was one of the sort of mantras. It's like, are you a human being or a human doing? To be a human being, you have to be not that busy and still be okay with yourself. I don't really have that talent. I do need to be busy, or I kind of tend to fall to pieces. I start asking myself too many questions and it all becomes very, very dark. And I don't like myself and stuff. But I get busy and I make little achievements. I do make a nice little piece of music. I do a nice interview with somebody nice. And I think, my day was all right.
But that's good. Yeah. No, I'm curious about it. I think a lot of people still feel a bit scared to open up any doors to the past, look back.
Yeah. I think it is intrinsically scary for everybody, because we don't have perfect childhoods. And sometimes when you go back and put yourself in the skin of that child that you were, it's scary all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have an easy childhood?
I knew you were going to ask me that. On the face of it, I had a good home, stable home, and loving parents. So yes, I had an easy childhood in that way. I was an only child, and I found that difficult. I was very lonely a lot of the time, to the extent that I would invent friends just because I didn't want to admit that I didn't have any friends. So I had these fictitious friends that I would talk to, which I remember my mum being pretty surprised when she came out. I was sort of playing with my little toys and talking to this person in my mind, and she would say, "Who are you talking to?" So I think she thought I was a little deranged at one point or another. But I found out that that's very common in only children. I was also kind of ashamed, even as I grew into a teenager. I felt ashamed that I didn't have really close friends that understood me, and I didn't have a girlfriend. I desperately wanted to have a girlfriend. That was all I could think about for a long time when I was like 13, 14, 15. That's all I cared about. I don't have a girlfriend. Why not? So I would kind of pretend I had a girlfriend as well. Looking back, it's so funny. I was like pretending that I had a life. I didn't feel that I had a life. And so I got lost in music. I think that's where the music came in. The music was a friend to me. I used to listen to music under the covers at night in bed. I'm making myself sound quite pathetic, aren't I? But I was a pretty lonely child, and that was a driving force in my life, I think. Looking back on it, I think that made me do a lot of the things I do. And it also makes us performers, I think. Now, I don't know if you're the same, but for me, that period when you're adolescent and you're trying to make your way in a world where everybody becomes couples, I was incredibly stressed. And if I went to a dance, as it was in those days, or some sort of gig, and I would look around, I would be way too scared to talk to any girls. And I looked up at the stage and I thought, if I was up there, I wouldn't have to bother with all this. I would just play my guitar and people would think I was great, and I wouldn't have to do that. And that really happened. I remember the first time I was on the stage, I thought, yeah, I like being here. I don't have to do any of that stuff that they're doing out there. I don't have to like chat up girls. Just get on with what I'm doing, and what will happen will happen. And it was okay. So the music was a really good friend to me. It made me find myself.
And was it true for you, the ancient truth, that when you play guitar you get a lot of girls? Is that what happened?
You get a lot of girls?
I don't know, because I'm a girl, so I need
yeah, I suppose it is. Not always the girls that you've wanted, because I was still a very shy person. So when it came, like, as soon as I came off the stage, and if girls were interested in me, I kind of didn't know what to do. I was fine if I wasn't that bothered. If they were just a girl that didn't excite me, I was fine, and I was a nice, normal, decent person. If it was a girl that made me go, I still couldn't do anything, it's like, I think I'll just go back and play my guitar now. So it didn't really solve all the problems. I was still me. I was still kind of shy, and I had to kind of make the effort to learn. See, I also went to an all-boys school, which I now think is a tragic mistake, because for a whole number of years you don't speak to girls at all. So how are you going to understand how a girl thinks and how you're supposed to behave? It was, I think, a really damaging experience for me. And I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Go to a mixed school, deal with whatever comes up, because that's real life. Yeah. I became a governor of that school later on, and I still didn't get it until I saw my son go through it. And after that I thought, because I could see it more clearly, after that I thought, no, this isn't the way to go on. We live in a mixed society, not just girls or boys, but people of all sexes, as we know now. You have to be living in that milieu, or you don't learn. We're all different, aren't we? That's what life, to me, that's the joy of life. Discovering how different people are. I've always loved it, and I've never felt that anyone should be disadvantaged for being any particular colour or sex or religious upbringing or anything, height, weight, anything. We're all people. But I find the modern world difficult to live in, because we're forced to sort of categorise and tick boxes and stuff. That's never been the way my generation worked. It's hard for us. Because we only want to make decisions on the basis of what we find.
We're in a really weird teething period, because I guess now I'm going to talk out of turn, but I guess I suppose where a lot of this comes from is from a couple of generations back, where if you were a girl with this kind of orientation, you had to fit into a certain box and do a certain amount of things. And for boys, the same thing. So if you're a boy, you have to do a certain set of things and not cross over into the other realm. And I guess people just want the opportunity to do whatever they like and to not have it be a factor. But then now we're in a strange teething period where, because things have become so fluid, what we've ended up doing is just making more and more different categories, which almost feels like we pigeonhole everything a load more, which just makes it feel a bit uncomfortable. But I don't know, I'd be really curious to see what happens, because right now the pushback is also crazy, and that's not good either. That's the camera. It's I won't leave anything incriminating. I'll try.
I've probably incriminated myself loads of times. Is it okay being a girl in what you do, or do you find there's prejudice and there's problems?
That's a really good question, actually. It's a good question. It's sometimes it's difficult. Yeah, sometimes it's difficult. When I was first online, it was an interesting thing to navigate, because when you come from school, you learn about a time where women had to do a load of things, and it sounds all really Victorian. And it's kind of amazing to leave that circumstance and come out into the world that you think is so modern, and you've learned, you've been in school over 10 years learning about human progress and the amazing things that we can do and everything that the world has on offer. And then you discover that actually people still do feel like that sometimes, that people do just in the little things, or that people maybe try to take advantage of you, or people feel that you're, I don't know, slightly less, I don't know if saying less worthy is the right word, but a lot of people feel like you may have gotten to the place that you are just because of that. And that's kind of demoralizing, because it's I guess it's like the same kind of hang-ups that people have who come from money, who want to say, but I worked really hard and I did this and it's on my own merit. And people constantly tell them, no, it's not like that. It's just because of this one thing that you didn't have any control over. I guess it's maybe that.
Interesting.
But it hasn't been too nasty, and definitely as I get older, it's becoming less nasty. I don't know if that's because I'm blocking more people or spending less time online, or if it's because I'm not looking as young as before. So maybe that's one of the real benefits of getting older, is that nasty
Well, so
people
you're a
get off the
known
back.
quantity, aren't you, to your followers?
Yeah, I guess so.
They won't be asking
So
questions like that,
I hope so.
right? I block a lot of people too.
Do you?
Oh yeah. I just don't have time for negativity, really. I didn't in the early days. I used to try and challenge people who challenged me and sort of talk them round. I wasted so much energy, particularly as regards animals, because my introduction to Facebook, no, not Facebook, is it Facebook? Yeah, Facebook. I did Facebook as an animal charity, and we used to get so many people trolling us, as I now know it is, and really saying horrible things and supporting the persecution of animals for various nefarious reasons. And I tried to reason with them, and it was a total failure, because you don't change people's minds generally. If they think it's fun to torture a fox to death because their dad did the same and they're going to, you ain't going to change their mind, really. So I stopped doing it, really, and that's probably that's the main reason why I came off Facebook, and I don't do it now. It's also the reason I came off Twitter, because I got into lots of arguments on Twitter. It gets very serious, and I thought, I'm wasting my time here. I don't need people's aggression in my life. Why would I, am I benefiting from this? In the end, I thought no. So if people say something negative about me now, I block. If they say something negative about one of my friends, I block. If they say things which are, what's the word? Well, off subject and demeaning in some way, I block. And I don't even think about it now, because I just don't want the aggro. Because you're making choices anyway every day, aren't you? And of course, I regard my site as my property. And if people want to come on my property, they come at my invitation. And the invitation comes with certain conditions. That's my boundaries. You come on my property, you behave decently, you don't put negativity out there, or else I don't want you. So yeah, I have a pretty easy time on Instagram now.
That's nice.
On the whole, there's still a few people get through, but block.
Yeah, that's quite a good solution. Pre-internet, did you ever have people that talked to you in that kind of way? I guess maybe the tabloids, but that's not
Yes,
really...
I mean, we had a very bad time from the press when we were coming up as a band. Horrendous, actually. They really hated us. The sort of jealous hatred that happened, and it's still there in some form. We just put we just reopened We Will Rock You in the Coliseum, and we still had people being horrible, sort of jealous carping about, I suppose, the fact that we're successful and maybe they don't get it. But yeah, so we had a lot of sort of being trolled, especially Freddie. People just wanted to ridicule him, not just criticise him, but make him look stupid for one reason or another. And it was hard not to be resentful about that stuff. The great thing we had was each other. We had the four of us, and we just thought, we're stronger than this. We were critical of each other, and so that makes you strong. So it really didn't matter what some journalist hack is saying about you. But yeah, we did have it. It's always been there, and it's still there. Yeah.
Who was the best at dealing with that stuff?
The best at dealing with it? Well, I don't know, it's various levels, isn't it? You can be seeming to deal with it, and perhaps you're not dealing with it underneath. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. I think we're all sensitive deep down. The arrows do get to us. Yeah. And you have to deal with them. I mean, Freddie, on the face of it, was very confident and very sort of dismissive of criticism, but I know that he felt it. Nevertheless, he was strong. It never stopped him doing anything. Yeah. That's the sort of way, isn't it? They say sort of feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah, you do feel the pain, but it doesn't stop you being who you want to be. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your music to me just helps me. It makes me feel good and acts as a kind of a buffer. I can get lost in the things that you post, and it makes all the horrible stuff go away for a while. I think that's a very good thing for music to do, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, and I just watch and think, See, I can't do what you do, so I'm not thinking, I could do that. I'm just thinking, this is doing something. This is kind of healing my soul. I'm not viewing it as a musician. I'm viewing it as a listener. And I find it great. I think it's wonderful.
Shall we do a bit of...
we could.
EP.2? Should we do that? Thinking about it.
Yeah.
Can try and bring this stuff with us as quick as possible. I reckon now that we've got it pretty much set up, it'll be alright.
Okay.
Okay, let's try it. Let's see.
Tell me what I can do. Not too loud, do you?
If you record this, people think all I ever do is tune a guitar.
Something went...
Yeah, the camera. The camera said...
Oh, the camera. That's lovely. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's so amazing. The kind of music that people were writing back then.
It's just beautiful. I think I got that.
So...
I can't do it when it's not 12 string. This is where Freddie comes on. Hurry back, don't take it away from me, because you know what it means to me. Perfect.
Yeah, it's such a... Who came up with the setup for that?
What
With
doing?
Freddie coming on and then...
Oh. Well, I suppose I did really. We've done it in various ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking for a way to do it because I always did it with Freddie, of course.
Yeah.
I can't even remember when we've been doing it a long time. And then eventually, I think we just did it in sound first, and then we managed to find a nice clip, and they worked on it so it would go on the screen, and it looks like he's playing with me.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's playing with me as well. It's quite amazing. It affects me all different ways, really. Sometimes it's just very jolly. I think, oh, there's Freddie, that's really nice. Sometimes I think, he's a bit slow tonight. I think, no, he's not. No, it's me. Because he can't be slow, he's always the same. And then sometimes I just get really choked. Sometimes I just think it's really sad. I just wish he was there. He can't be.
Yeah.
It's a whole mixture of things, really. Oh, my missus. Excuse me if I keep
That's right.
Hi, darling. No, we're just winding up pretty much. Lots of talking, lots of playing and stuff.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Fret Not with me, Rosie Bennett. If you would like to follow me on Instagram, that's at Rosie Bennett Guitar. If you'd like to follow Brian on Instagram, then that's Brian May for real. I'll put both of those on the screen so that you can see them. And if you'd like to start a conversation, you can of course either write in the comments and I will respond to you, or you can write an email to the podcast email, which is fretnotpod@gmail.com. I do check those during the week, so if you have something that you'd like to share that feels a little bit more personal, then feel free to write an email. And yeah, just thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then please like and subscribe and do all the YouTube things that you're meant to do to support the video and support the podcast. I really love making these, and I really hope that it'll be able to continue. So yeah, just thank you so much for being here and for watching these. And if you have stuck around until this point, then thanks for your support. It really means a lot to me. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you for the next one. So I hope that you're all really well, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. All right.